Brett.
Joseph.
How's it going?
I'm good. I'm breathing as best as I can.
That's okay. Sometimes when I'm listening back, like my breathing gets to me too, especially when it's allergy season. But
yeah,
you just need like the distance, like if you're gonna take a breath, and like the distance of like your mouth to the microphone.
Right. I need the cough button.
Yeah. Just like mute yourself when you're about to take a deep breath. Yeah.
Right.
But Brett, you know what we're talking about today?
I do. We're gonna talk about some people who are canceled.
Some canceled people, canceled X-Men's and
Bryan
women's.
Singer.
Bryan Singer too, yeah, especially. Oh boy.
We don't have to get into that.
We
People
can.
already know.
We can get into it a little bit.
I'm open to it.
He's I guess we'll get to it when we get to his movies.
Right.
Are you like an X-Men stan?
I recall a cartoon when I was a child, but
Yeah.
that was the extent of my knowledge until the movies came out.
Okay.
But I've seen them all.
You've seen all the movies?
The only ones I saw in theaters are the Bryan Singer ones.
Okay.
But I enjoyed myself. I really like Days of Futures Past.
Okay.
Like I think that's just like a fun, like sort of Endgame style X-Game. X-Men.
I think that was the first movie of the like, let's put the old cast with the new cast.
Mm-hmm.
Now every other fucking movie does that.
Yeah.
But at the time it was only X-Men, I think.
X-Men did it first.
X-Men did it first. Where was I going with this? I don't remember. Yeah, I loved the X-Men when I was a kid. That was like, Spider-Man was like my introduction to like superheroes.
Yes.
But when I found out about the X-Men, I was hooked. I was like, I love the X-Men. And I saw all the movies that I could, and I watched there was like 4 or 5 different cartoons, and I watched all of them. I loved the X-Men when I was a kid.
Who's your favorite X-Man or X-Woman?
When I was a kid, it was Iceman and Gambit. Those were my 2 favorites.
All right.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of people say Gambit.
Because Gambit was so cool. He was like...
That's what I hear, yeah.
He had like the trench coat and the cards, and like he had cool powers. And we'll get to him later too, because...
Oh yes, I've heard about the Gambit film saga.
Yeah.
or lack thereof.
Yeah, so obviously there's like a bit of a rights thing with the X-Men for a long time. Oh, this is what I want to say. The reason we're talking about this is because there was leaked images of Wolverine on the set of Deadpool 2.
That is correct, yes.
And he finally has
He's got the yellow boy.
He's got the full Wolverine costume.
I believe he was holding his mask as well. Was that just like me making things up?
That might have been you making things up.
No,
I don't remember that. But
no, I don't do that.
Okay, yeah, he was holding his mask. I remember now. He was holding his mask.
Okay, yeah. No, I remember that.
I don't.
His hand is blue. There, prove me wrong.
But yeah, like they never wanted to do the costumes because they look too silly. But it's like, no, this is how you do it. Like, it's about fucking time.
Yeah, and people have wanted to see it at least for, I feel, the last few recent years.
Yeah, and as far as I've seen, everybody loves it.
Yeah, I have yet to see a negative reaction to it, and I don't love the color yellow, but to me, it's like,
that's
of
Wolverine.
Course, yeah. That makes sense. Why wouldn't that be the thing? It's nice that he doesn't have to match an entire team of people.
Yeah.
I'm curious if like that was a specific like request by maybe like Ryan Reynolds or something. Just like, hey, people want this.
Yeah, I'm sure, because same thing with Deadpool. It was like, people hated the Deadpool, and so he was like, we have to give them the comic book Deadpool, and so
that whole saga of how those films or that first film got made is insane because he just leaked it.
Someone leaked it. I don't think he leaked.
I thought he owned up to it.
Did he? He might have.
Maybe. Somebody leaked it, and he was just like, maybe he was just kind of like, oh no, someone leaked it. Share.
Let's make the movie. Yeah. So we're gonna start in 1996.
Okay.
This was the first time an X-Men live action thing was being conceived. So it was gonna be. So this was 4 years after the premiere of the cartoon. Okay.
All right.
So X-Men, it was big at the time. Everybody loved the cartoon.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. This is true. I was there.
Okay.
In 1996, X-Men were cartoons,
and they were huge.
And they were big. A couple are smaller, but they're mighty powerful, so they make up for it.
So they got to make this X-Men live action TV show, and just the pilot of it was released, and I think just the pilot was what was made. It was called Generation X.
Oh, I never caught that.
Yeah, very very small touch of X-Men in it. It's not.
Ah, I see.
Yeah, see that's the thing is they get around with,
they tiptoed.
Yeah, it's very 90s. If you look up pictures of it or if you watch the thing, I think it's all on YouTube. You can just check it out.
Yeah.
It's very 90s, just very like neon, like green t-shirts and like, weird sets. It looks like the Flash, like TV show from the 90s.
Okay.
Yeah, it looks very absurd for like
it's a product of its time. Oh,
the only like X-Men connection it really had was like the leads of it were Banshee and Emma Frost and Jubilee, and she had like an origin story that's just like in the cartoon where she was like an orphan who like gets her powers and then comes to live at Xavier's Institute.
Okay.
But it was led by Banshee and Emma Frost, which is two very random X-Men to...
That's what I was thinking, and I'm not as well versed on the X-Men as you are, but I feel like that's just kind of, I don't know, who are going to get sued the least about.
Yeah. And they had a relationship, which they've never had a relationship in the comic, at least that I know of. And then the rest of the cast is like minor X-Men characters or made for the show characters.
Oh, they had all of those. They had an entire school of children.
Yeah.
And they chose to just create their own.
Yeah.
That's insane.
That always bothered me and shit whenever they would like just make up characters instead of like getting actual real, like Arrow did that a lot too, where they would like make up a character and then like 5 seasons and be like, oh no, actually this character the whole time was actually this character.
Yeah.
And it's like
those CW shows were very insane.
Yeah.
I watched, the only ones I ever watched were the super duper crossover episodes, only because like I was super curious how a network can do that.
Yeah, I mean they didn't look great from what I've seen of them, but
I mean most TV show superhero shows don't look that great unless they're on like HBO or like one of the bigger streamers like Disney. And even that's debatable these days. So this TV show does sound incredibly 90s to me. The randomness of those characters.
Well, and then also the villain it's not like an X-Men. He was a scientist who was obsessed with getting into people's dreams. And he wanted to steal Emma Frost's powers so he can get into people's dreams. I mean, it's obvious why they didn't continue this show because
there's a few reasons. I feel like I'm curious if they had any intentions of. I mean, this is only a pilot, so obviously,
who knows?
If they got the green light, that's when their intentions really start. But I'm curious if they had any intentions of like bringing in an actual like popular.
That's
X-Men
what I was wondering too.
Not that like Jubilee and Emma Frost aren't. It's just like who are the bigger ones? It's usually Professor X, Magneto.
Professor X wasn't even in the show. Yeah. Was it going to be like, oh, Wolverine's in town this week, and Storm's in town this week. Yeah. Like, let's hang out with Storm, or she's going to help us with a mission.
And it's special guest star, 90s icon
Halle Berry.
Halle Berry in 96. Ooh, they can't afford her. Ooh. I'm thinking more like Jackie Harry.
Yeah, someone. Anyone could do that role. But yeah, no, it was just one of those things that obviously that's not going to work.
No, dead on arrival.
There's no connection of X-Men, a very tenuous connection to X-Men at best, and just poorly developed, poor story. It was like, this isn't going anywhere.
Yeah, I don't see that being watchable. I know it's making me think of that Birds of Prey TV show that came out.
Yeah,
I've never seen that, but I know that
I've never seen that.
I know that at least got 2 seasons.
Yeah, I think I never watched it or looked too much into it, but I think you're right. It did have like a couple seasons, and somehow
it got past season 1. To me, that's a success.
Yeah. But then as we know, after this TV show, 2000s, or was it 99s? I never know if it was 2000 or 99.
I actually don't know.
I think I'll just say 2000s X-Men. The first X-Men live action official movie comes out, gets 2 sequels, X2 which same thing, a lot of love, a lot of praise. I think a lot of people think it's better than X-Men 1. I do think it's a bit better.
I think I prefer it of the three. I don't have...
Yeah.
I'm not really married to any of those three movies, but I know 3 is probably the weakest.
Yeah. When I was a kid, too, I never loved the movies either. I just liked that there was X-Men things, but I didn't like the costumes. I didn't like how it was like Wolverine-centric and that Cyclops was a bitch. And I didn't like it just felt to me like it was the Wolverine movie and then also X-Men stuff happens.
Which is hilarious because they went on to make not 1 but 2 other actual Wolverine movies.
Yeah. 3 Wolverine movies.
Oh, Logan.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's very true.
So X3, obviously this was a departure. So Bryan Singer was contractually obligated. I don't know if he was obligated, but he was going to do the third X-Men film. He left to do Superman Returns, and he brought James Marsden with him, which is why Cyclops dies at the beginning of the movie. And then
it's
Brett
fine.
Ratner
It all worked
comes
out.
in and he directs it, and it's a big flop, a big bomb. Everybody hates it. To this day, everybody hates that movie.
Yeah, it's not one of those that like it's not so bad it's good one of those movies.
But before he left, say what you will about Bryan Singer, he's like a child rapist now or something, and he's a piece of shit.
I think he was before.
He was before, and people only found out after. But he had a version of the film where it was sort of the same idea. So they set up like this Phoenix thing at the end of the second one, and so that now during the third one, it was going to be the Phoenix movie, which is that's what they did, but he had a different version of it. I think Emma Frost was going to be, if not the main villain, like one of the villains who was trying to get the Phoenix Force from Jean,
right? And
so that was good. I think that's sort of a somewhat common plot, is like Emma Frost is like wants to take over the Phoenix Force.
That's that's a common thing in the zeitgeist. I think it's like Bruce Wayne's parents getting killed.
Yeah. And then same thing, Magneto was going to be in it, obviously, and Jean Grey was going to sacrifice herself, and it was he said it had a very 2001 A Space Odyssey type ending where Jean's body dies, but then the Phoenix Force like lives on, and it's like a whole like thing, and I'm open to seeing anything that would be better than X3 The Last Stand. I don't know that it would be, but I'd like to see it.
You want to see someone give it their best shot.
Yeah. I don't want to just see... I think my problem with that movie was just that it was just... They were trying to do too much and not enough at the same time. They were like, let's have every, like...
Typical threequel.
Every like X-Men villain, we're gonna have Juggernaut, and we're gonna have, and then all the X-Men are gonna be there except for the ones you like. We're gonna kill them all off, and yeah, I don't know.
Juggernaut's very funny to me, so he always like, you could be here.
Yeah, I guess,
But yeah, it's like I said, it's typical threequel. It's like we
got to cap this off, but we don't really know how to. And
this might be the last one, so let's go out with a bang. So it's like their intentions might be good, but it's almost always just too much.
Yeah,
too much and not enough, like you said.
This was something that I've often thought about this, but I've never I've never said this.
Never said it out loud.
No, I'll always think to myself whenever I see like a shitty comic book movie, I'm like, there's literally 60 years of stories with these characters that you can tell. Just like do that. Like you just have to like tell that, but with people instead of drawings. And you got a movie like, Civil War. I know Civil War, people don't think it's the best Marvel movie, but it's like it's something that people know, and I know it's not exactly like the comic, but it's something people know, and it's based on something. So obviously people are going to be more drawn to that than just, we have to write a random X-Men story where just the X-Men fight Magneto. It's like, at least draw from something. And then they tried to do that later with the Apocalypse movie and with the Dark Phoenix movie, but even those, it's like, read the comics, base it off the comics. I don't want to just see characters from the comics. I want to see stuff that happened from the comics.
Yeah, it's a lot of like Spark Notes energy. It's like these directors or producers or whoever. I think the creators who are making these things now, for the most part, actually do try to like investigate, study, understand what they're actually making. Whereas probably back in the 90s, they were just kind of like, oh, I know what Batman is. Yeah. I'll just make Batman. He fights the Joker, whatever. Yeah. I think that's probably the same kind of mentality that went into that.
Yeah, no, definitely. But it's like, why wouldn't you just base it off one of the pre-existing stories? Because then people will like it. If you write a movie and it's exactly like a comic that a lot of people love, chances are people are going to love that movie too.
Right. I think The Amazing Spider-Man 2 did that, but they did it at the very last 5-minute ending, like 5 minutes of it, and it wasn't even again the entire accurate story. It was just their twist on it. Yeah.
And that's why I think Days of Future Past did so well, was because people were like, this was a story and it wasn't perfect, but it was somewhat accurately represented in the film. This was like a famous storyline from the comics that they did a pretty good job of adapting in real life.
Yeah, I think the only thing I've ever heard about like negative about the like comparisons between the two is that the Peter Dinklage character is not like
he's not a small
person. He's supposed to be like more villainous, I guess.
But it's like, who cares?
I didn't care. I like Peter Dinklage.
Yeah, just he's a bit shorter in real life. That's who cares.
I know.
Yeah, I know it's not entirely accurate because like Kitty Pryde was the one who went back in time instead of Wolverine, but for the story they're trying to tell, it doesn't make sense. Wolverine, it makes sense to send back in time because he was alive and because you have the 70s cast and the present day cast, so it's like I think it was the perfect mix of pulling from the comics and doing what we've been doing in the movies.
Creative freedom.
Yeah,
I agree with that. Like I said, that's probably my favorite X-Men movie. It's just so. I just think it's the most entertaining to watch. It's like
definitely.
It's like a kind of emotional, I guess. Maybe like there's just a lot at stake, and I think visually seeing people die probably is what did it for me, because that's what fucked me up about the last Terminator movie. Spoiler alert: in the first 2 minutes of Terminator: Dark Fate, you see 13-year-old Edward Furlong get
that's
gunned the fuck down.
That's pretty funny.
It's funny now, but at the time, it like scarred or traumatized is way too dramatic of a term. But I thought about it a lot after I saw the movie.
Yeah,
only because I grew up watching Terminator 2 so much.
Yeah,
so it was just kind of like I just watched a character. I don't want to say one of my favorite characters. He's kind of a shithead.
Yeah,
but it's like, oh, I watched a character I've grown up watching just get murdered.
Yeah.
But it's popular in cinema now. We love a
killing off.
We love a tragic
hero death.
Yes, there it is.
But speaking of the 70s X-Men cast, so before X-Men First Class, we had X-Men Origins Wolverine.
Yes.
And so it was, obviously we all know, critical flop, financial flop. Everybody hated it.
It leaked quite a bit early than most movies do too. Like a lot of digital effects were not added to it kind of early.
Yeah, and so it was a big flop. Everybody hated it. Everybody hates it to this day. I enjoyed it when I was a kid because it's just, I liked X-Men stuff, and I was just like, it had Deadpool, it had Gambit. I was happy to see an X-Men movie.
You sound like me with Star Wars as an adult. Yeah. Like, I'm just happy to have more.
Yeah. I wanted more Gambit. I was really upset it wasn't more Gambit. Didn't like the Deadpool, but I was like, hey, that's just movies. They always do that. They never do it like the comic books and the movies. You can't use that excuse anymore.
No, yeah, because I think that's going to be a point of reference, I think, in like cinema going forward, being like, this is why you don't take creative freedoms.
Yeah.
Even though I guess it was at the very least kind of original. I don't know if Deadpool's ever had his mouth sewn up in real life.
Yeah, but so this movie was gonna start off a new series of X-Men origin films.
That's right.
And so they were going to do X-Men Origins Magneto, and that was going to be the next one. I think they said, if Wolverine flops, we're not going to do it, but if it's success, X-Men Origins Magneto.
Yeah, we're going to focus on the origin saga franchise.
I think there was talks of doing an X-Men Origins Rogue too, but that was in X-Men. So
I honestly think I heard the same thing.
Yeah,
most people. One of my best friends to this day loves X-Men, so that's where I get all my information from. And yeah, I think he at the time was like, it's not necessary.
Also, I never cared about Rogue. She was never one out. In the cartoon, she's interesting because she was a criminal, and then she steals Miss Marvel's powers, and then she can fly, and she has this thing where she can't touch people because she'll hurt them.
Yeah.
But in the movies, she's just like whiny, and she's just like, oh, I don't want to be at this school. I don't want to touch people. I can't touch my boyfriend, and it's just
that's one of my things about the like 90s or 2000s live action movies is like they're very angsty, aren't they?
We need an emotional teenage girl. That's what we need in this movie.
Yes, and Rogue definitely was, but I feel like even like the Iceman character was also like angsty 90s too. Like I think they were just going for like Dawson's Creek-ish.
Yeah, definitely.
Which is fine. Like that's what was in demand at the time, and I think is relatable at that age.
Yeah.
But for me, I'm just kind of like, lighten up.
Yeah.
You're not even paying taxes. You don't even pay taxes yet. Why are you upset?
Yeah. So X-Men Origins Magneto, it was going to star Ian McKellen once again as Magneto, but this takes place in the past, so they were going to have like a Magneto in his 20s, which was and so Ian McKellen was going to be in the movie, but the majority of the movie was going to be flashbacks to. So the plot was going to be Magneto's a little boy, he's in the Holocaust, and then Professor X is a soldier who helps liberate him. And then they become friends, and I think majority of the movie is going to be about Magneto hunting down all the Nazis that tortured him and his family. That
would have been a pretty cool movie.
Yeah, they did it for one scene in First Class.
Which was very cool.
It was a great scene.
But I wanted a whole movie of that.
Just a whole movie of Magneto just going through Europe and Brazil, just finding Nazis and just like finding cool like magnetic ways to kill them. I think it would be a great movie.
Yes, and there's endless creative creative freedom, sure, but I don't want them to take creative freedoms with that. I want them to get creative with his kills, his methods of transportation, etc. Like there's a whole wide world there with a movie like that, and it's unfortunate we only got a contained version of it.
Yeah, and the villain was going to be Mr. Sinister. Are you aware of Mr. Sinister?
I think I am. I think I have a face in my brain currently for him.
He's sort of like he's like a mutant villain who he like is. It's hard to describe, but it's almost like he manufactures mutants, sort of in a way. So I think it would have made sense to have Mr. Sinister as a villain in a Magneto movie where he was maybe disguised as a Nazi and like helped torture him.
Yeah. Plus, mutants probably weren't as prevalent at that point, so him being a creator of mutants could be an interesting thing for that, with the lack of mutants compared to the actual X-Men storyline we're mostly familiar with.
And so a lot of this was carried over to X-Men First Class, which I really enjoyed.
I liked it.
Yeah.
The only I know a lot of people didn't like how what was the one character who
Darwin?
Yeah, the one who was not supposed to die and did.
Yeah. That was a bit like, what are you doing, guys?
Yeah.
But
I went in so blind to that movie. I went to see it with my friend I mentioned earlier, and our other friend. I was like, oh, an X-Men prequel. I can keep up. Great.
Yeah.
And he died, and I remember the groaning in the because it was like a midnight show, so it was just kind of like, what? And I was like, what happened?
Yeah, I was a bit upset with the lack of more popular X-Men. Like I know Beast was in it, and Emma Frost and Mystique, but just they had Angel Salvador and Havoc and Azazel. It's just like none of these characters mean anything. Like I want to see the X-Men I like in this, Yeah,
I get that.
And I'm sure people like those characters. But,
for sure. But you want to see the characters you like,
right?
I get that. As a consumer, you're allowed to feel that way.
Yeah. And so in X-Men First Class, they changed it to Sebastian Stan as the villain instead of Mr. Sinister. Kevin Bacon. And, it was fine. It was just the same guy, I guess.
I'll be honest, I couldn't. It's Kevin Bacon's one of those actors where I just see Kevin Bacon.
Yeah,
and I think it's because he did that commercial where he was like pretending to be a guy who looks like Kevin Bacon, and then he's like, "Oh, my wife says if I eat any more bacon, I'm gonna turn into Kevin Bacon." Or no, if I watch any more Kevin Bacon, I'm gonna turn into Kevin Bacon. And then he like crosses his fingers.
Yeah,
it's very silly. I love commercials.
But yeah, I mean, I would have loved to have seen that Magneto movie. Obviously, we can sort of see it in X-Men First Class. Maybe one day down the line we'll get a Magneto-focused movie, but
it's not unlikely. A reboot is, I believe, closer than further.
Yeah. So after that, this is where we get in kind of a murky area because they just started to throw everything at the wall at this point. They were going to make a multiple man movie. He was the leader of X Factor in the comics, and he's sort of like a detective character, but he can make multiples of himself. He's a really interesting character in the comics, and so I could see why they would want to make a movie out of him. It was going to star James Franco, and I think he was producing it too.
That sounds familiar, yeah.
And at the time when it was announced, I was like, fuck yeah. Like, I want to... Obviously, Fox had a bad track record of doing anything, and James Franco had a bad track record of being a person. And so
he couldn't...
Yeah. So that movie never happened. Hopefully one day we'll see a multiple man movie. I'd still be open to that. Maybe
it's not unlikely.
Marvel, this is my official audition tape to play multiple man. I'm here, but I'm also here. So
that's true. I see him in 2 cameras right now. I don't know how he's doing that.
Look at that.
That's
so Marvel.
Wild.
Give me a call if you want to play multiple man in a multiple man movie. I'm down.
And you can, if you need a reference, you can call me.
Yeah, Brad was there for it, so he knows.
I'm right here. I'm here for his audition right now, so I can vouch it's good in person.
And then this was we alluded to earlier, the Gambit movie.
Yes,
with Sir Channing Tatum's. He wants this movie so bad. He wants this Gambit movie.
It like makes me sad talking about it because he wanted it so bad.
He wanted it so bad
because he's one of those actors who like actually gives a shit about it.
Yeah.
And,
he came out at Comic-Con wearing a Gambit T-shirt, and he loved Gambit. He's like, I'm gonna do this Gambit movie. And then I think he did an interview recently where he's like, I don't think about it anymore because I get really sad when I think about it.
I believe I also read the same interview. Yeah, that's so depressing because it's like because Channing Tatum's one of those people who's not a terrible person, at least that we're aware of yet. Check the date on this video. But yeah, so it's like, give good people the things they want.
Yeah, But also, I was never a fan of him as Gambit. I don't think, in my mind, he's Gambit.
Really? Who would you like to see as a Gambit with you being the X-Men person at the table?
I mean, I thought about that a lot actually, and I could never think of someone because you need someone who could do the accent, and you need someone with like crazy hair. So.
Feel free to go 90s, 2000s, or present day.
Yeah. Just, I really couldn't tell you. Yeah.
So we're on the hunt for Gambit. Okay.
But just to me, Channing Tatum is not. He's too much of like a sexy buzzed hair and big muscular like boy. He's not Gambit who's hanging out in New Orleans with messy hair and with a big trench coat and like, oh, hey, Cher.
We got a taste of long-haired Channing Tatum in one of the 21 Jump Streets, and now that I think about it, that would kind of take me out of it.
Yeah, I never liked him as Gambit, but apparently this is a spoiler. Do you want to hear a spoiler?
I would love to hear a spoiler.
This is a spoiler alert. Turn off the video if you don't want to watch the spoiler. Apparently, he might have a cameo in Deadpool 3 as Gambit.
I hope that happens.
Yeah.
I would love that for... I want that for him.
I want to see what it would look like.
Yeah.
Because I can't picture it in my head, and I want to see what it would look like.
Mm-hmm. On that topic, since we're here, did you hear about Jennifer Gardner?
I did hear about that, yeah.
I wasn't sure how valid it was, but I'm like, why not?
Sure, yeah.
I feel like...
Just like, who cares?
She does 3 different commercials, so I feel like she's just kind of like, yeah, I'll take a check.
Yeah. I figured all these news has been about you know, so and so was coming back in Secret Wars.
Yeah,
and they're gonna play like, oh, Ben Affleck is coming back as Daredevil, and Tobey Maguire is coming back, and Hugh Jackman's coming back. All the news lately has just been like, what comic book characters from the past can we bring back? And I'm just like, I really don't care at this point. I neither believe nor subscribe to any of them because I'm just like, it won't change anything. You know?
Plus, for me at least, it's kind of like I've fallen for this before. Kind of thing. I've hit that point. Plus, I feel like there's a little bit of I personally, at least, I won't speak for anyone else, but I feel like fatigue is maybe approaching in terms of the, like, I don't know about the nostalgia thing necessarily, because that's nostalgia boom has been around for like 10 years now probably, but just the like, oh my gosh, it's this person is the character they used to be or were supposed to be. I think maybe The Flash kind of tipped me over the edge. Okay. Even though all of it was like CG, I was still kind of like, oh, I got to see all of them at the same time, but now I'm so bloated. No, I've been thinking about this a lot lately, mainly because we've been talking about it so much. I feel like every episode we talk about this, but I think it really peaked at Spider-Man, and then since then it's just sort of been, there's nothing new you can do with it, really. Like, I agree. Like, Multiverse of Madness had potential and did have some fun stuff, but most of it was kind of cut short. Yeah, I mean, and they spoiled the biggest one. I think the biggest one to most people was John Krasinski as Mr. Fantastic. Yeah, that was spoiled for me before the movie was out. Me as well. And I think the Professor X one they spoiled in the commercial. Yeah, they did the trailer or whatever. Yeah. So there's it's like these ones that I think people would really care about. They either get spoiled or they like. I don't know. I just don't think there's anything better than we got. Unless like Christian Bale has a cameo in the next Batman, like that. Right, that would have been insane. Oh my god, that was supposed. They tried to make that happen, and he was like, "I heard about that. Absolutely not." And me and Nolan said no, ride or die, and I respect the shit out of that. Yeah, I think if Christian Bale had shown up at the end of the Flash, I think I would have. That might have been like Andrew Garfield level of excitement, right? But there's nothing really else that could get me to that level again. I agree, honestly. Like, I thought Keaton Batman was great for me, don't get me wrong, but the Spider-Man movie, I think, was, at the end of the day, a bigger deal for me. But also, you went into The Flash knowing this is going to be the Flash and Michael Keaton movie. Right, yeah. There was no mystery to it whatsoever. Yeah. I think the only other thing that they can do would be if, like, Tony Stark and Captain America show up. Like, that, I think that's... that would be like the ultimate cheer moment is if Tony Stark and Captain America showed up. Yeah, because they've kind of done everyone else at this point. Yeah, I mean, who would you cheer to see in Secret Wars? This is a fun segment. In Secret Wars, Marvel character, like a Marvel actor from a movie. I'd choose to see Wesley Snipes, but I doubt they do that. That would be fucking cool. Yeah, mine's it's so corny and it's honestly kind of a cop-out. Yeah. I want to see Howard the Duck. Yeah, that's the reaction I thought I was going to get. I know, it's just like, they've had Howard the Duck in the MCU. And right. I don't think enough people so really care or will get excited for Howard the Duck is the thing. I would be excited for the Howard the Duck that canoodled with Leah Thompson in the 80s. Yeah, I guess. Only because I love like... I think there is a very high percentage chance that that's going to happen. Really? I think there's a high chance that will happen. I don't see why not. Yeah. This is a new video idea. We won't do this today, but we'll do this in a different video. All right. We're gonna do the ultimate Secret Wars prediction. I love it. Who's gonna cameo? I love it. All right. That's a lot of fun. Stay tuned for that episode. It's gonna be a hoot and a half and possibly even a holler. Yeah. And a Howard. That's pretty good. Thank you. Okay, X-Men movies. We gotta get back to talking about X-Men. They made all these X-Men movies, and after that, there was Apocalypse. Mm-hmm. There was another one, Dark Phoenix. Another one. Yeah. So Deadpool 2 comes out, and it introduces X-Force. Mm-hmm. Deadpool, Cable, Domino. That was supposed to be
and at like the lead in for an X-Force movie, and they were going to have Psylocke and all the famous X-Force characters, but then alas, Marvel takes over. They're like, fuck all that. We'll do Deadpool 3 because people like Deadpool and because we'll make money and because Ryan Reynolds.
Yeah. And
we're going to start fresh. Mm-hmm. And from the spoilers that I've heard from Deadpool 3, that seems to be what the movie is going to be, is just a wipe the slate clean.
Mm. I've kind of gotten that vibe too. Just because I've noticed the fact that bringing Hugh Jackman. Wait, is that his name? Who am I thinking of? I was confusing him with a much older actor, Hugh Jackson. I don't know. Anyway, bringing him back alone was kind of like the obvious indicator for me that they're not taking like the continuity of whatever universe they're a part of at this point seriously.
Yeah.
So that makes a lot of sense.
Okay. Which of these canceled X-Men movies do you want to see the most?
Oh man. I think that I really want to see that Magneto.
I want to see that Magneto
Nazi
movie
Hunter movie.
Yeah,
that would be a shit
if they
show.
Just do it as like a separate thing from the MCU. It's just like fucking get Fassbender, get someone, get some German actor, and be like, all right, let's just make a fucking movie where you can control metal and you kill Nazis.
I'd watch the fuck out of it.
Yeah,
I think a lot of people would actually, because who doesn't like watching getting Nazis murdered?
I'd also like to see the Multiple Man movie. I don't really care about the rest. I don't really care about a Gambit movie or a whatever, the original X-Men 3. Those are the only two. Because this is one last tangent, and then we'll end this one and do another one. To me, the X-Men shouldn't be let's make solo X-Men films.
Yeah, I agree. It's a team thing.
I want X-Men films.
Yeah,
I don't want Wolverine films. I don't want Magneto film. I want X-Men films because that's what the comics are about. It's about the team. I'm sure there's solo comics and there's, solo adventures. And if you want to make solo movies, I get it. But I just want a good X-Men story where they all help each other and where Cyclops isn't a bitch.
Every time you say that, it makes me laugh. I don't know why.
Because he's a bitch in every movie.
That's true. Usually I don't know what I'm talking about. He doesn't do much. He's and then I'm thinking of James Marsden specifically.
Yeah.
He's just another one of the like angsty 90s
he just whines about like, oh, where's Jean? Like,
right, exactly.
No, I want Cyclops who fucks shit up.
Right. Can you light a cigar with your eyes or something?
Yeah. I want Cyclops to fucking just like a scene where someone knocks off his visor and they're like, look at this fucking loser, and then Wolverine's like, you shouldn't have said that, and then he just opens his eyes and fucking murders everybody.
I think that would be fucking cool. I want to see that in one of the X-Men classrooms.
Yeah. I want him to see Cyclops murder children with his eyes.
Is it so much to ask for, Disney?
Yeah. Come on. Just give us that.
You brought back fucking the Youngling Killer, so it's not far-fetched for you. I think we'll get it.
Yeah, I think so. We'll see you guys next time.
Peace.
Peace.